Okay, wonderful. I am so excited to be joined today. Welcome to the Social Media Detox podcast. I'm here with Rob Feiner,
Hi.
who is a licensed professional clinical counselor. I wanted to get that right.
That is correct. It's a mouthful, but you got it.
I am so excited to have you here to talk about social media. It is obviously something that is taking over our lives. Do you
Sure.
see clients talking about the impact that social media has on them?
Oh, all the time. Yeah,
Really?
all the time.
Okay,
It's
and what comes up about social media?
I mean, everything from, inferiority complex to just feeling bad about themselves to um, pretty much anything under the sun that's usually negative.
Hmm.
Granted, my opinion is kind of skewed because, like I was talking about before we got on, like, oh, what do you do for a living? Like, I talk to people about their problems a lot, all
Right.
day.
That's the only thing, in fact.
Yeah, that I mean, I get some highlights, but
Right.
I'm
Yeah, of
helping them
course.
sort through their stuff, and
Yeah.
so if that's integrated into their lives, of course, it's going to come up.
Hmm.
Yeah, it comes up a fair amount.
Yeah.
Uh,
I know I've talked to my therapist about social media and the impact a lot.
mhm.
One thing that came up for me when I was talking to her was like, sometimes I feel like I make decisions in my life, like my real world life, based on what I think it will look like on social media
Yeah.
and based on what people will think of me.
Hmm.
And that's like so crazy and scary to say that out loud. It's like, oh my God, I can't believe I would make any sort of judgment about
Sure.
my own life or decision based on like what I think someone will think of a post that I make. Isn't that
Yeah.
crazy?
Well, it's kind of wild. I mean, that's the way it works. I mean, when I
Right.
work with my clients, I often talk to them like social media is advertising perfected. Like
Yeah.
it's the way it's a combo of a couple of different things, but one of the ways it works is that you have it in your pocket. Like I see your phone there.
Oh,
I have
yeah.
my phone in my pocket. I got a
Mm-hmm.
Kindle sitting over there. The Kindle is always on airplane mode, but when it comes to your phone's always in your pocket. And we
Right.
used to have advertising like it was granted it was on TV, but you could technically walk away.
Yeah.
But our phones are programmed to use them. I mean, the technology is not evil itself, but like we're going to use it in a certain way because it's going to get a response out of us. And of course, the people that make our phones want us to use them more.
Totally.
So yeah, with social media, like it's embedded in your brain. And so
Right.
you're being peddled something,
Yeah.
and virtual advertising, right, is make you feel bad about yourself.
Right. So you need
And
to buy
then
something.
you gotta buy something.
Yeah.
And so now we're all thinking that way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think it's tough on your ego, it's tough on your brain.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I have a lot of clients who think that way. I've had clients who work technically in social media. Like I've had some streamers
Mm-hmm.
that I've worked with. One of the things that we tend to try to work with them on is if it's what they do for a living, it's part of their job, then make it part of your job.
Right.
Don't bring it into your home.
Yeah. It's so
That's
hard though because the
yeah,
phone doesn't go away. Your phone is
doesn't.
by you when you sleep. Your phone
Yeah.
is by you right now. Your phone is by you at any
Yeah.
time. It's just so crazy.
Yeah, it takes a bit of work. It's kind of figuring out what it's doing for you in the first place.
Right.
Like what you're getting out of it.
No, totally. I
Yeah.
even feel like a lot of influencers too now it's like they're not making as much like what are we doing? We're keeping it glued to our hip all the time for
Hmm.
what? Like what is it actually doing?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
crazy. Okay, so from a clinical perspective,
Hmm.
what type of psychological effects do you see social media having on your patients? I guess is it patients? Is
Oh,
that the right
yeah,
word?
we call them clients.
Clients,
Yeah,
right? Not
I'm not a
patients.
medical doctor, so
Right.
we don't get to call them patients.
Okay,
Uh,
got it.
I reserve that for
Details.
my medical friends.
Yeah.
Um, you know, one of the things like we tend to, unless it's more of a severe pathology, like we usually try to divide it into two categories. At least for myself, it helps me conceptualize what's going on. It's usually anxiety or depression.
Okay.
Anxiety being, a prolonged low level or sometimes high level of fear of something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and with depression, you're having, low to severe levels of sadness.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of those two symptoms are going to be popping up.
Right.
Whether one begats the other, it's kind of up to the individual, but those generally are the big two that come up.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, my background is in cognitive therapy. So to basically put it in a very short, easy version of understanding. And it's basically you have thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. We work with your feelings, which are those one word answers: happy, sad, angry, ecstatic.
Mm-hmm.
We have our behaviors, things we do, and then we have our thoughts. So our thoughts are the narrative that's going through our head. The
Mm-hmm.
feelings, we don't mess with those. They're
Yeah.
valid. Like if I slam that door and you go, and I
Yeah.
say, don't be scared, I mean, you're just like, well, I'm scared. So
Yeah.
you're not going to say, like, don't be this.
Mm-hmm.
With your behaviors, it's kind of hard to say, like, don't do that. Like, don't pick up your phone and look
Mm-hmm.
at social media. Well, don't tell me what to do. And the last part, though, is the narrative that goes through your head. So we try to work with that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are you telling yourself? What's the story that you're
Right.
telling yourself right now? The big one is no judgment involved. Like,
Okay.
there's zero. It's like, it doesn't matter what the story is. We just want
Mm-hmm.
to figure out what it is. And maybe there's a, like, not critical as in like you're bad, you've done something wrong way of
Mm-hmm.
looking at it, but almost like critical thinking in terms of like, how is it benefiting you? Like, what do you get out of it?
Right.
Is the way you're thinking about that habit, or is it fact?
Mm-hmm.
We tend to look at it objectively, but with some compassion there
Yeah.
for yourself.
That's interesting. And I feel like, sometimes if I wake up and I immediately look at social media,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like somehow subconsciously what I looked at in the morning like seeps into my entire day.
Oh, for
Like
sure.
this happened to me the other day. I was like I immediately, a bad habit, woke up, looked at Instagram, saw my girlfriend who has this like adorable family in
Mm-hmm.
Kansas City. She's got 2 kids,
Yeah.
got the husband. It's adorable. And I know that that's not something I want right now, but it made me feel bad.
Mm-hmm.
And then the whole day I thought about it. I was like, oh my God, her family is so cute. And it's just like seeped into my subconscious.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's so, it has a bigger impact than we realize it does. Like even just looking at like cute photos and thinking like, oh my God, I'm so happy for her.
Yeah.
And then actually putting it back on myself, I'm like, maybe I'm not doing all the things I should be doing.
Totally. Yeah.
You
It
know?
brings out that sometimes like we're inferior or we're an imposter at what we do.
Yeah.
The thing that tends to help a lot of clients of mine, the way we look at it, is phone, social media. It's kind of like smoking was in the 80s.
Yeah.
Like I'm in my mid 40s, so like I grew up with 2 chimneys in the house. Like these people smoked in the house. Like it's like that. I'm not on social media all that much, but like
You're around it.
Yeah, and like the meme of like a 80s living room and it says like this room reeks of smoke. Like
Yeah.
that was my house.
Yeah.
And so at the same time, you got your parents who are smoking like a pack and a half of Marlboros a day, and they're like, "Don't ever smoke. Don't do the thing I'm doing." And as a kid, you're like, "Please stop smoking. Like, can you roll down the window when we're driving?" But as a kid now, you're looking at your parents. You're like, "Dad, can you put down your phone? You're always on your phone," and you're like, yeah, don't do the thing I'm doing right now. Don't go on social media. It's evil. It's terrible.
Right.
As I post on Instagram and look at like my YouTube feed about, I don't know, the best fight finishes of 2012.
Right.
And you're doing the same thing your parents did, except you're replacing smoking with social media and your phone. So here's the deal with it. You talk to a doctor, like, yeah, smoking will mess you up. Like, it's going to kill you. Social media is not going to kill you, but it will mess up your brain a bit.
And it changes the way you think about the world and what you think even like you want,
Totally. So if you think about it, it's like 2 cigarettes a day ain't going to kill you, but it's okay. Like, it's not great. Same thing with social media. It's like you place it strategically. That's one of the things I work with my clients on. Like, what's its purpose? Like, what do you want to get out of looking at before you pick up your phone and you click that? It's almost like this idea of like slowing things down and saying like, all right, if I'm going to click the Instagram like, what do I want to do with it today?
Right.
Like, what do I want to check out?
Yeah, and why? Do I want to look at my ex-boyfriend's profile?
Yeah, you got it.
Guilty as charged.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, or do
yeah,
I want
yeah,
to look at like something that motivates me, which is harder, further and fewer between, I feel like,
yeah.
on social media to find good content that makes me feel good.
Sure, yeah, you gotta clean up your algorithm, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I tend to be not someone who's gonna judge it at all. Like, we're gonna participate in it if we want to.
Mhm.
And so if you do, clean it up. Like,
Right.
if you want it to be puppies and kittens, then get off the fitness influencers,
Right.
you know?
Those gym rats. Yeah,
Yeah,
they're
get
working out.
right, right. And so like get it on to puppies and kittens. That's
Yeah,
great.
I do love a puppy feed.
Yeah.
That's a good
So
feed. Okay, I want to talk to you a little bit about the role of social media in identity and
mhm,
self-esteem.
sure.
There's a lot of comparison online, which we've
Mhm.
kind of touched on, but I think like specific to bodies, I think it's really
Oh
interesting.
yeah.
And it feels like there's a lot of studies now coming out about, especially young girls
Mhm.
struggling with eating disorders
Yeah.
because they're looking at these idealized
Mhm.
versions of women. And we even saw it like early days was like Kardashians, and they were
Yeah.
like very clearly editing their photos, but it's
Mhm.
really hard. Even if you're smart enough to know like that's not real, it's really hard in your brain to
Yes.
separate. But why don't I look like that? Like, why do I have cellulite? And I
Yeah.
think that that's weird. So, can you tell me about like how you see that come up?
I mean, that comes up all the time, even if
Yeah.
it's recognized. Oftentimes, we'll have the conversation and then it'll go exactly like that. And no,
Hmm.
it's not real, but it's doing some damage.
Right.
So I'll usually ask, like, what do you want to get out of looking at it?
Yeah.
Like, really, truly, because oftentimes you're bombarded everywhere else in your life by this. What is the reason you're inviting it into your home? And by your home, I mean,
Your
granted,
brain.
your brain, but also your phone is part of your home,
Yeah.
your apartment, your room, your house, whatever it is. Like, what do you want in your home?
Hmm. Yeah.
And so we ask those questions.
Hmm.
Sometimes that'll slow things down again enough where someone says, like, you know what, I'm cleaning up that algorithm. Like,
Hmm.
I'm like, and I'll tell them, I said, I'm not on Instagram anymore. The only reason I go on Facebook is Marketplace because
So
there's
fun.
all kinds of
Too
fun
many
stuff on
deals.
there. Yeah,
Too
like
many
I
deals.
I yeah, I I
Yeah.
I built some cool stuff finding stuff on there, but the only one I'm on is YouTube because I'm a dude in my 40s. So
So
like,
fun. And they really specify, yeah,
oh
car
yeah.
videos.
So like I'll go
Yeah.
through it and if it's anything like if it's political, if it's anything to do with the news, what I don't care. I just go not interested, not interested, not interested
Hmm.
anytime it pops up and then it's just like world's tallest building.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
I get really into like strongman exercises, so it'll just be like world's strongest man like over and over and over, but that's it. And
Yeah.
so I'll
Right.
say like that's what I want
Yeah.
in
Okay.
in my home, so to speak.
Okay.
I don't
Got
want
it.
anything that's going to agitate me.
Right.
Yeah.
I want to talk about social media and its impacts on relationships.
Mhm.
So, whether that's friendships or whether that's romantic relationships, I feel like because of social media, people tend to think the grass is always
Mhm.
greener, or,
Mhm.
somebody else's relationship is better.
Yeah.
How do you think social media affects real life relationships?
Oh, I mean, it's interesting cuz it could go one of a couple of ways.
Hmm.
Um, I have a really good friend who really likes to post on social media, and they've said, "Hey, like I get the little validation, and that's fun, and sometimes it makes people laugh because I'll post some funny stuff, but then I get people laughing at it. So, and he's not a comedian; he's just a dude.
Hmm.
And I said, great, that's like works for you. That's awesome.
Hmm.
And he doesn't rely on it though for validation. But as far as like looking up at it almost like a keeping up with the Joneses, that's where it gets gnarly. And I usually start questioning it with my clients where I'll say, hey, um, what are you looking to get out of that? Like what do you see and how is someone else's success a reflection on you? And so sometimes we have to disconnect those two things, like, oh, this person is quote unquote doing well in this snapshot of their life,
Mm-hmm.
how is that connected to me at all?
Yeah.
Like, it isn't. But it takes the extra step, almost like bringing it from your implicit bias, which is your automatic bias, to your explicit brain, like your
Mm-hmm.
conscious mind to actually question it. But we can't do that when we're just kind of flicking through.
Right.
So also the big one is bringing it to the mindfulness component, so it's not affecting your relationships, because the way it can is you can disconnect from those friends. You could feel inferior. Oh, why do they want to hang out with me?
Mm-hmm.
Granted, they're probably thinking the same thing.
Right.
That's why they're posting all that shit.
Right. Right. Right.
Right?
Right. So have you seen social media ruin relationships, and how does that show up?
Yeah, romantic ones, it can be a doozy.
Right? You
Um,
gotta explain. I mean, it feels obvious, but
well, part of it is, oh, you checked on your ex. Well,
guilty.
why did you check on your ex? I was curious. And some of the time when we dissect it, it's like, do you want to get back together with them? No, I don't. I just think they were a good human and they're there. So I got curious on like
What they're up to.
what they're up to, and like, oh, I'm actually happy they're happy.
Yeah. But I am the girlfriend that is like, why would you look at your ex's profile? I am that girl. So I
Right.
understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You get curious. We're pretty curious human beings. The
Yeah.
difference is, what are you doing with it when you look at it? Are you thinking about messaging them?
Mhm.
Are you in a current relationship and you're thinking like, oh, I'm looking at it because I'm looking at my past relationship with rose-colored glasses? Like, what's the meaning behind it? But that's
Yeah.
hard to see when all of a sudden you have a distrust of your friend or your partner or your spouse, and then you're looking through their history like, why did you look at her thing? And
Yeah.
it's like, I don't know what I can tell you right now that's not gonna go over poorly.
Yeah. And these are problems
Yeah.
that people just didn't have, say, 25,
No.
30 years ago.
No.
I mean, even my mom, when she was growing up, she's like, I don't get it. I don't understand how you can even deal with social media, because it was so much simpler.
Mhm.
Like, we had these options.
Yeah.
This is who we dated or
Mhm.
ended up with, And
Yeah.
then, like, I didn't realize that there were 100 other people, and he didn't realize there were 100
Mhm.
other people that he could have messaged and met up with.
Yeah.
And I feel like it really opens this can of worms. That's unrealistic, by the way. It's not even like you
Absolutely.
could really message these people and end up seeing them.
Right.
But I think the thought
Right.
of it
Mhm.
can ruin relationships.
Well, our brains are not equipped for that. You got to think about it this way. It's like, we're by the La Brea Tar Pits, so it's almost like if we dial it back 10,000 years when there's like saber-toothed tigers running around and everything like that, our brains have not evolved. Like, we're not evolved as human beings since then, but
Mhm.
yet the technology has evolved in a way where our brains react to it like it is reality.
Right.
And that takes a step to take a step back and go, oh yeah, it's kind of like, when you were a kid and you saw a scary movie and it's like, it's just a movie. It's
Right.
not real. Like, Freddy's not real,
Yeah.
But with social media, it's like you're constantly bombarded with it.
Mhm.
And then your brain is programmed to go like, oh, that's real.
Yeah. Oh,
Even
that's
if
an
you're,
option.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's an option. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it goes all the way back to like, think about it. I was an early participant in social media, but I mean, back in the AOL days, but then you go back into
MySpace?
like MySpace, your top 8. You think about like
Oh my
why
gosh.
that
Top
came
friends?
up.
Stressful.
Yeah.
Stressful.
And fuck relationships
Yeah.
constantly.
Totally.
Especially if you're in high school.
Very
Oh my
awkward going
gosh.
into the middle school
Yeah.
gym class and saying, did I lose a spot?
Right.
To
And you think
Kim?
about like, why was that made? Oh, to get people to use it more.
Right. To check it
Yeah.
constantly and say, where
Yeah.
am I on your friend list?
Exactly.
Yeah. Or if you got booted off, no one told you.
Oh yeah.
What
That
a
was rough.
nightmare.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it is crazy. And I do feel like it's evolved even since the MySpace days. I mean, MySpace felt simple. It was like a
Absolutely.
simpler, but it was
Mhm.
still addicting.
Yeah.
know?
I mean, you didn't get fed a bunch of things that were like, as I put it to my clients, like emotional agitators.
Right.
That's something I peel from treating folks with schizophrenia. When I was working more in the clinical days of the clinical counseling, I had a few clients who were diagnosed with schizophrenia or thought disorder, and the way it works is oftentimes your basically your loss of reality, or the psychosis would occur in the midst of a mood disorder. That means in the midst of the depression, that would make all of a sudden the auditory hallucinations, the visual hallucinations, which basically you're believing your thoughts are real, which can be terrifying, which is why, hey, we take your meds, we go to therapy, we do all that stuff. I take a page from treatment of that, where it's like we minimize for our folks that deal with psychosis, we minimize emotional agitation to like the bare minimum. So it's like, oh, you have a roommate that really gets on your nerves. So all business, like you don't talk with that roommate that much, or reading the news is really, really heightens you in your emotional agitation. We don't do that. Don't read the news, because the last thing we want is you singing into depression, because
Mm-hmm.
that's when the psychosis can kick in.
Right.
So with my clients who just deal with depression or dealing with social media issues, we go, okay, how do you remove the stressors? You got enough stressors going on.
Yeah.
Why are you self-flagellating?
Mm-hmm.
So we work on that.
So do you ever suggest detoxes, social media detoxes?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, great. And
Yeah.
what do you think that does for people, a detox on social media?
We go through withdrawal symptoms for sure.
Yeah.
Like it's pretty wild what happens. Like I often coach them through it. Like your anxiety symptoms are probably going to spike. You might feel disconnected at times, but I'm also pretty empathetic. It's like, hey, there's a reason why we got here in the first place. You know,
Yeah.
it's COVID.
Right.
You were there, but then you spent like a year isolated, and your out was your phone or the computer, and you saw your friends through the phone, and you saw your therapist through the computer.
Mm-hmm.
So we're still kind of dealing with that little bit.
Totally.
So I give a lot of empathy with that. It's like you develop the habit of like, hey, that phone is my friend.
Right.
So it's hard to have a break from your friend.
Totally. Well, I have a few things on that, but first
Yeah.
I want to talk about, that idea of like feeling connected with people, like
Mm-hmm.
even during the pandemic or when you're isolating and you're by
Mm-hmm.
yourself, but you feel like you're a part of something.
Yes.
But like it's so crazy because you're really more disconnected than ever before. It's
Yeah.
like this illusion of like
Mm-hmm.
relationships or illusion of
Yeah.
friendships or I mean, how do you think that shows up and do you think that's harmful and do you think what do you think that does to us?
Well, I'll peel it from my associate, who he works under my supervision. He has a wonderful approach to this. It's a lot of these things are needs based, like our behaviors, our emotional needs, and we need to have them met. And if we don't, we're going to do it in any way possible, whether it's maladaptive or not. And
Mm,
as I mentioned, my wife works with a lot of kids on the autism spectrum. Like they have sensory needs, and they're going to get them met. So we have to teach them ways of getting them met that are not interfering with their functioning
mhm.
in their class. And so with social media, we got to look at the need. What's your need that's going unfulfilled? Oh, it's connection. Okay. Okay. Like, and there's an easy way to get it. Well, I go on social media. We maybe want to diversify a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way we can say that being on social media and feeling connected or versus sitting with someone on a couch is the same connection, right? I mean,
Exactly.
that can't really
Yeah,
substitute.
exactly. It might be able to get you by in a pinch.
Yeah,
Not gonna lie, like I
on
was
an
talking about
island.
being on YouTube. Like I got a little community in that like strongman workout community where one person will post a video, and I don't post videos, but somebody will post like a video of them lifting like a 400-pound sandbag, and we're all
Mhm.
like, good job, man, like that's great. And it feels good to give that person props. Like
Mhm.
that feels nice that you're complimenting what they did, and we only know each other through that, and that's
Yeah.
fine, but it's there and then it's done. Like we
Right.
don't harp on it.
Right.
But if I want more of an emotional connection, well, my buddy who I text funny things through the day, or a group of friends that I do that with, or I hop on the phone with a friend because I work in isolation a lot, or I talk to my sister or my mom or my dad or whoever. Um, that can fill in for that emotional need.
Yeah.
But sometimes because we're bombarded all day, our bandwidth to get on the phone is like not there.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
I think something that's really interesting that I feel like I have been seeing more and more
Hmm.
is that we as a culture have become really good at being alone.
Hmm.
Like, I feel like social media has helped us with that.
Yeah.
And in a way that almost feels, it's like sometimes I'll date a guy and he'll be
Hmm.
like, he's actually happier by himself. Like, because he's become,
Yeah.
we've all been, and this
Yeah.
has happened with some of my
That's a
friends.
whole other podcast
I
about
know it's
dudes and
another
being alone.
podcast, but I think it's a weird like thing that I almost feel like I'm annoyed that we have social media because it makes these people that want to be alone feel like it's okay to be alone. And I
Hmm.
even feel that way about myself. I'm like,
Hmm.
I'm actually pretty content by myself, which I'm
Yes.
proud of.
Yeah.
And I'm happy that I'm
Hmm.
able to be alone and like be happy
Hmm.
and not feel like I'm going to totally break down. Like a
Yeah.
few years ago, I would have totally broken down like in
Yeah.
isolation. But now I'm like, oh, I've like found ways to like entertain myself.
Hmm.
But in a way that makes me a little bit scared that I'm like so happy alone
Sure.
because
Sure.
I know I want to get through the world and have connection
Hmm.
too.
Hmm.
So I feel like social media has made us feel like you don't need those relationships as much as you
I
did
get it.
50 years ago, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I get that.
You know?
It's hard because it's trying to find the balance, like the way you
Mhm.
want it to work for you.
Right.
Sometimes, you figure out like, oh, hey, there's certain things when I was trying to connect with others that I actually don't like.
Mhm.
I've been sober a long time. It took me a while to figure out that I was really introverted and I didn't like going out to crowded bars. And my wife always says like, "Oh man, but you're so extroverted. You can like get along with anybody." I'm like, "Yeah," and then I need to go to sleep for like a week.
Yeah.
Like I'll go home from this podcast and I'm gonna be like, put on that CPAP. I'm ready for a
Yeah.
nap. Um, so big thing is I think some of it is letting us know like there may be certain ways of connecting with others that we don't actually enjoy, but maybe giving ourselves a chance to go, okay, what might I like connecting with others on,
Mhm.
where it might be some weird stuff, and that's where social media does benefit us, where it's like you might be into a weird
Niche.
niche activity and
Yeah.
then you go on Reddit and then it's LA, so of course you're going to find something.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, like I like this weird niche activity. I like it's like scavenger hunting around Los Angeles for,
Right.
there was like a geotag group or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And you meet a couple people, but you do some stuff in person. And
Yeah.
that's cool.
Yeah.
And then maybe you get some coffee or whatever it is afterward, but you may see that maybe big groups aren't what you like to be in, or
Mhm.
going to house parties and not what you like to do. That's okay.
Yeah. But do you think that social media has become a crutch for people
Oh
and
yeah.
feels like it's becoming a substitute for like, oh, I don't need real connections.
Yes.
I'm connected with people online, so it's
Yeah.
fine. And like I don't have to go out and go on dates like cuz why would I? Cuz I'm fine by
Yeah.
myself. And that feels like it's scary to think about what that would do as a society
Well, right,
to
because
the culture.
I mean, we're so programmed for connection to the point like our greatest asset is our ability to work together as humans. It's the only reason why we survive. And you got to look at the world right now. There's like a million people who hate each other. Yet
Mhm.
somehow we're still here because we're so programmed to coordinate, but we need to get out in the world to actually do that. And again, I think it's like where our bandwidth for interaction goes down, the more we use our computer or our phone to interact with people. It's like you only have so much energy to actually get out in the world. Most people are not the most extroverted. It's usually a balance between being extroverted and introverted. I'm like a secret introvert where I can go out and I do need to do it sometimes, but a lot of the time I need to be at home with the dogs or the kids or my wife.
Yeah.
And that kind of takes it out of me. So, but it is this idea, and I talk to my clients about it too. It's like, you got to get out there or you're going to get, I mean, the scientific term is weird. Like, you're going to get weird. And I joke about it too, where I'll surf and then I'll get fed up with like whatever it is, traffic going to surf. Not that I'm special, but like, oh, there's so many people out here. Yeah, you're one of them. You know, you're not in traffic, you are traffic. But I'll get fed up and then I'll stay in the house for like 4 days. And I'm like, nah, man, I'm happy and content hanging out with my dogs and doing therapy with my clients and lifting weights or doing whatever. And then I'll realize, oh, you're starting to get weird, man. You need to get out in the world,
Yeah.
go surfing or go
Right.
get a cup of coffee with your buddy.
Yeah.
But it is that approach of knowing when the weirdness starts to set in, like what your
Totally.
tells are.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy you brought that up. One of the things in the book that is one of the there's like assignments every day.
Mhm.
And one of the assignments is like going out and like interacting with a stranger, like
Mhm.
meeting a new friend essentially.
Sure.
And I do feel like there's so much benefit to that, right? Just like, don't you feel like just feeling connected, even if it's
Oh,
like talking
totally.
to someone in the line at Starbucks,
Yep.
there's so much benefit to just like feeling like you're a part of something.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the really nice thing. It's like oftentimes everybody's looking to do that.
Right.
It's just a matter of cracking the ice with them.
And getting them off their phone because we're all glued to our phone in line
Yeah.
at Starbucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And main thing is it's kind of similar to the way we approach movement, because a lot of people will look at social media, oh, I'm not exercising. I'm like, that doesn't work for everybody.
Yeah.
Like, the main thing is like you find a form of movement that feels good for your body.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter what it is. It could be yard work, it could be walking, it could be whatever. Same thing goes for your socializing. It's kind of finding that way that gives you the ability to go, oh yeah, all right, like this is, I feel okay with this. I have someone I've worked with years ago where was going to live music and they would go by themselves. And I say, that's great, because it gives you an opportunity to interact in short bursts at the
Mhm.
same time. Like, go get in the pit.
Yeah.
You know, that's interacting.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, go slam into people, and then go, maybe if you see the same people over and over, which you usually do, you guys can talk a little bit. And
Mhm.
maybe it's just that. But
So
it's
just finding those spaces to
Mhm.
connect. And I do feel like it makes a big difference.
It
It's just
really
like
does.
interacting with people.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd like to go a little bit back to the idea of doing a digital detox
Mhm.
and what that has done for your clients.
Yeah.
Do you see there is a change at the end?
Yeah, oftentimes it's progress, not perfection, though. Like,
Right.
we
Yeah, I mean,
never,
you're not going to get them off social media forever.
no,
That's
no.
unrealistic.
But it's that same way. If you're detoxing from anything, if you're going to go back to it, you're going to have to do things differently.
Right.
You can't go back to it and expect it to just change. It's like, oh, I took a vacation from work and now I'm back. And why am I so stressed? It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, Hawaii doesn't cure, your burnout.
Totally.
So what we do with them when they come back is the things we were talking about earlier, where we do find some success. You clean out that closet of your algorithm.
Mhm.
You also take a look at, okay, how do I feel? Like, if we can't get in touch with the emotions, like what's going on in my body
Mhm.
when I look at this thing?
Yeah.
If it's anywhere where you're having a heightened level of emotion, you're going to want to ask yourself, is that like one that is desirable? Like, am I excited? Am I psyched up to do this thing for myself?
Mhm.
Or is it like, oh, I'm anxious and I'm not doing this thing?
Right.
And if it's anxious that you're not doing this thing, that thing's got to fucking go.
Yeah.
Like, you got to get rid of it.
Right.
And so when they come back, it is that kind of puppies and kittens algorithm we're looking for.
Love a puppies and kittens algorithm.
You got it.
I love
It's whatever floats your boat.
Right.
But it's everything that's going to bring less stress to your life.
Yeah.
Because the key is, your life is stressful. You got
Yeah.
kids, you got dogs, you got cats, you got aging parents, whatever it is. You got a job that's stressful. Don't do it to yourself
Right.
on your off time.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the reasons I'm so excited about the social media
Yeah.
detox. Not to harp on it too much.
No, I'm
But
into it.
I'm so excited because there's 14 days
Hmm.
and it's different activities every day to kind of get you back to a baseline of like, what do I actually want to do with
Yeah.
my life? What are
Yeah.
my actual goals? What do
Hmm.
I really want to do?
Hmm.
How can I start doing energizing hobbies is one of the
Hmm.
days.
Oh
It's like
yeah.
getting into energizing hobbies and
Hmm.
like what makes you happy and like what would be good to fill your time when you're not
Yes.
on social media. So I
Yeah.
think that I'm really excited about that because I really feel like it brings you back to like, oh, this is what I want. And
Yep.
like this is and like being bored is one of the days. It's like
Yeah.
getting quiet and like
Hmm.
actually listening to your thoughts
Hmm.
because I feel like we're so bad at that now. I feel
Yeah.
like I'm addicted to noise. I
Hmm.
want and I'm not as addicted as my parents. Like when I go
Hmm.
home, I swear there's a TV in every room,
It's always on.
bathroom, kitchen, everywhere. There's noise
Law and
everywhere.
Order or the news? Which
The
one is it?
news.
Okay.
The news,
Okay.
which is worse because they
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
freaked out about that.
Yeah. You talk
And
about getting agitated all day.
right.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh my God. Talk about doom scrolling.
Hmm.
And so yeah, I just feel like it's a cool opportunity to do that.
It
But
is, and with finding new activities, what we often talk about too is that think about it all as an experiment. Like you're the
yeah.
scientist and the experiment. So no decision is a bad decision. You can experiment with whatever because you don't have to stick with it.
Right.
You're always, my dad has a great analogy. Like he could still pass some dad wisdom on to me. He's 81 now. And I think I got it all figured out. I tell him to shut up all the time. But,
yeah.
we were driving one time and I missed an exit. And fuck. I inherited his, Long Island road rage. And he goes, no, it's fine. You got a steering wheel, right? Yeah. A full on dad joke, right? And he's like, you got a steering wheel, right? I was like, yeah. He goes, well, you'd be real trouble if you didn't have a steering wheel. I was like, that's pretty good. I'm going to pass that one on to the clients, Dad.
yeah.
Where it truly is that. Like, you do have a steering wheel. Like, you
Yeah.
can, if you don't like glass blowing, don't do it. Like, you
Right.
took the lesson and, like, it just seems like really expensive. Cool. You figured out something that, like, maybe you're interested in, but
Yeah.
you're not going to do it, and that's all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I do feel like it's important to like really take some time to get quiet, hear your thoughts. Like I feel like
Mhm.
one of my tools that I use is I go to like an infrared sauna and I don't
Oh,
listen
yeah.
to any
Mhm.
music. I just like try to sit there and I swear my best ideas come from those infrared sauna like quiet
Sure.
sessions because it's
Mhm.
finally like your brain is like, oh, these are the things I've been wanting to work out. I've been too anxious to
Yeah.
work it out when I'm like there's around all the
Mhm.
noise. I don't really want to think about it when I'm going to bed, even though that's typically when it shows up.
Mhm.
To be in like a space where it's like okay to be bored or be
Yeah.
quiet,
Yeah.
I feel like makes such a difference for our mental health.
Totally. Yeah, bored's an interesting one too, because bored is usually the culprit where we're gonna pick it up.
Totally. Yeah.
And what you may want to think of it, we talk about cognitive restructuring. That's the idea of like wrestling with your thoughts and maybe finding a different way to look at something, like a
Hmm.
different perspective. Another perspective on bored is understimulated.
Yeah.
You're not being stimulated in the way you want to be stimulated when you're
Hmm.
bored. Like if you're sitting in a meeting, that's not testing your creativity or pushing you creatively. Like that's testing your resolve. Like you want to be stimulated. So your mind starts drifting towards like, I don't know, like going surfing that afternoon, or man, I'd rather be doing X, Y, or Z, or like, or you pick up your phone and
Right.
you look at Instagram in your meeting because
Yes.
you're bored to tears.
Yeah.
But really what it is you're understimulated.
Right. And you
So
want that dopamine hit, and we've become addicted to the dopamine.
yeah. Like that's the weird thing with dopamine too. It functions to raise your levels of tolerance for it go up, similar to any other substance you might partake in. It's going
Hmm.
to increase your baseline
Hmm.
tolerance. So it's kind of like, well, 2 beers doesn't do it for me anymore.
Yeah. So you got to be scrolling on TikTok for hours.
You got it. You got it.
Yeah. No.
So yeah, I mean that idea of like your attention span opening up, that helps. But really when you are bored, so to speak, and you kind of go, oh yeah, no, actually I'm like understimulated. My brain is going to more stimulating things.
Mhm.
What are my needs right now? I'm going to
Yeah.
take it from my brilliant associate, Michael, who you can find him on my webpage. Um, what are my needs?
Mhm.
It's, oh yeah, I have a need for connection right now. All right. I'm going to text my buddy this like funny meme instead of posting it on social media because I wanted to go to him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I was in my car this morning right before I left, and I heard this hardcore band that a buddy of mine listens. I thought he might listen to, and I was like, "Oh man, yeah, this would have been something I would have been like, this band is awesome on Instagram or whatever." But instead, I just texted him, "Hey, you ever hear of this band Gridiron?"
Mhm.
And he texted me back right away. Yeah, yeah, they're great. Like
Yeah.
it's totally like bro hardcore music, but whatever. We got a kick out of it, so
Yeah.
that's all that matters.
Yeah. Okay. So it's finding those spaces to connect. Yeah. Do
Mhm.
you think that doing a digital detox would do some sort of like adjusting to your dopamine?
Yeah,
Like
just
bring
like
like
anything else.
yeah, like
Yeah,
what's the word?
like a little bit of a reset.
Well, yeah. Do
Hmm.
you think doing a digital detox could
Absolutely.
reset your dopamine?
Yeah, I think it could. I think it's one of those things where it's kind of how you go about it too.
Mhm.
Because to think you wouldn't go without withdrawal symptoms, so you wouldn't go without feeling your feelings for maybe the first time
Mhm.
is, you're going in really uninformed.
Mhm.
So it's like if you were detoxing from anything else, what are you going to do for yourself? How are you going to take care of yourself that week
Mhm.
or those 14 days, especially those first? Because you got the fluffy pink cloud days where it's
Totally.
like, oh, this is the clouds are really white. I mean, I always think of do you ever watch The Wire?
Yeah.
Okay, you remember when Bubbles got clean
Yes.
the first time and he's looking at the trees and everything's really vivid?
Mhm.
Like that literally has happened to clients of mine who have said like, I'm taking a break and like everything's more vivid but then the feelings start to hit
Yeah.
after the fluffy pink cloud wears off, and that can be kind of quick. So
Mhm.
it's like, what are you going to do to deal with those feelings? Who's
Yeah.
your support system? What are you doing with your phone? Are you setting up blockers so you don't do it? Does it
Mhm.
have to come to that?
Right.
um are you going to replace it with food, like if you need to? Okay, whatever.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. There is a self-care day in the
yeah,
detox. So it's like taking care of like what you want to
totally.
do, making you feel good. So,
Hmm.
okay. Well, I am so happy that you came in. Now,
Sure.
anything you want to mention on the topic or anything else you want to talk about?
I think the last thing I would say about it is just it's in the way you're using it. But the
Mm-hmm.
only way you figure that out is you have to actually ask yourself those questions. I think your book probably puts that in there.
Yeah.
But creating a list of like, how does it benefit me? What do I want to get out of it? And really going through it where it's not just this automatic thing. Like you're not just, we're in the middle of LA right now. It's not just like walking out in the middle of the street at 2 a.m. and just going like, what's out there?
Mm-hmm.
You're actually going out in a little bit of a more calculated way. Um, the reason why I recommend doing that is you'll actually feel better. You might be more apt to put it down. It won't be as reliant
Mm-hmm.
on it because you're actually using it as a tool rather than a thing to do when you're bored, a thing to do when you're lonely, a thing to do whenever.
Right.
It's just the tool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Okay, so where can people find you if they're interested in talking to you more?
Oh, sure. You can find me on my website. It's robfiner.com. So ROBF as in Frank, EINER. So yeah, that's usually the best way to get in touch with me if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, main thing is I've done a couple other podcasts about other subjects like becoming a new dad or sports psychology. So, but this all kind of ties in. I'm glad you invited me on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, this has been so informative
Yeah.
and
Thank
wonderful
you.
and lovely. So
Yeah.
thank you so much. And
Awesome.
now you get to go put that little, what is it, CPAP on and go to
Oh
sleep.
yeah, yeah. Well, first I gotta brave the traffic on the way home, but
Yeah.
yeah. Oh yeah, CPAP. Any of you guys
Yeah.
get? If I'm gonna plug anything, if
Yeah.
you snore, go get a sleep test. It'll change your
It's
life.
helpful. Well,
Yeah,
that's good to
yeah.
know.
decrease your anxiety when you sleep well.
See, there's so
Yeah.
many things you just don't know.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
well, thank you for being
All
here,
right.
and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you so much. Yep.
Thank you.